week 9 of the fantasy football season. And here's the top 15 tight ends I'm ranking this week. Number 1, Travis Kelce of the Kansas City Chiefs. I know Kelce had an off game last week, but the Chief team in the whole just couldn't get anything going offensively. So this week, I think he bounces back. Miami, we know their defense is a middle-of-the-pack type of defense. And this week, a big crowd in Germany in a potential shootout. I think Kelce gets back to elite numbers after one bad game. Number 2, Mark Andrews of the Baltimore Ravens. So Andrews, the last few weeks, he's looked healthier. Him and Lamar Jackson back on the same page. And he's had the knack for the end zone once again with 3 touchdowns in the last 3 games. So this week here versus the Seattle team, which I know they got a pretty decent defense for the most part. But like I said, Mark Andrews been a matchup problem for most players. I got him at 2. Number 3, Dallas Goedert of the Philadelphia Eagles. So Dallas Goedert, he's had a couple pop games this season and some pedestrian games as well. But this week here, good matchup versus the Cowboys, where their linebacking crew is a little bit thin with Van Der Esch out for a while. And Dallas Goedert just has a good track record as well versus Cowboy team. So right now, last week it was the A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith show with Goddard not doing much. But this week here, I think they exploit the middle of the field a little bit. Is Jalen Hurts in this Philly team. And I think Goddard gets back on track for a good game. Like I said, good track record as well versus the Cowboys. Number 4, T.J. Hawkinson of the Minnesota Vikings. I know Jaron Hall's starting this game here for this Minnesota Viking team, but a young quarterback, we always know, for the most part, his security blanket's the tight end, and T.J. Hawkinson's one of the better tight ends in the league. Even we've seen it throughout his career. We're not great quarterbacks over there for the most part. When Matthew Stafford went down in Detroit as the backups, he was going out there and making plays as Hawkinson. So this week here in a tougher matchup, I know, at the Atlanta Falcons, they have a pretty stout defense for the most part. I still think he's a great talent. Then he's going to find ways to make plays and get open. And like I said, Hall's going to try to go short intermediate routes and slants. So Hawkinson, I think, can benefit from that. Number 5, Dalton Kincaid of the Buffalo Bills. Said Dalton Kincaid, he's broke out over the last 2 weeks. And now Dawson Knox with him on IR. It's all Kincaid over there in that offense at the tight end position. So right now, the middle of the field is going to have good looks. Obviously, with teams worried about Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis over the top as a deep ball threat. And Josh Allen, we know, is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Where he could get the football to players in spots where they only could catch it. So this week here, in a potential shootout at Cincinnati, I think Kincaid, I know, might be a little bit too high at number 5, but this guy has all the talent. First round pick, one of the better college tight ends to come out the last few seasons. And I got him at 5. Number 6, Logan Thomas of the Washington Commanders. So Logan Thomas, last couple seasons, injuries have held this guy back. But right now, he's healthy this season. He's top 10 easily in fantasy points at the position. A big 6'6", big 7 target in the red zone. Him and Sam Howell have a good rapport. And like I said, he's another matchup problem as well, where with his height and just his route running ability, he can go out there and make plays. So this week here, the banged up New England Patriot defense in Foxborough, I think Logan Thomas once again will get that 9 to 12 fantasy point range number at 6. Number 7, Trey McBride of the Arizona Cardinals. McBride had that breakout game. And we know Zach Ertz, he's out, but now it's about the future and the young guys here for this Cardinal team. So I know it was with Joshua Dobbs who got traded to the Minnesota Vikings, having that game. 10 catches, 95 yards, and a touchdown. But this week it'll be Clayton Tune, Kyler Murray back in the lineup. And it's a tough matchup, no doubt about it, the Cleveland Browns. But I think McBride could take advantage of the middle of the field. There could be a lot of garbage time in this game as well, like it was last week, where McBride in the fourth quarter really got his stats going up and got pushed into the end zone as well, where he kept his legs moving, and then the offensive line got him through the end zone. But anyway, McBride, a few seasons ago, one of the top tight ends in all college football. And this week here in a pretty tough matchup, but a game where it could be a lot of garbage time and either Murray or Tune at quarterback, I think McBride's going to get targets in this one and put up numbers. Taysom Hill of the New Orleans Saints. At Taysom Hill, we know he's a gadget guy. He don't qualify at quarterback anymore in Yahoo Sports or ESPN, but he's going in there, he's throwing passes. We know he's always got that goal line package set up for him within the 10-yard line, where he just takes a direct snap and runs it into the end zone. And he's even catching passes as well a few games this season. So Taysom Hill, the only thing with him, we saw it last season. He had some big games, and then some games they didn't use him at all. But right now, it's been working for this New Orleans Saints team. And this week here in a matchup versus a weak Chicago Bear defense, I think Taysom Hill could take advantage of it. He's been a hot waiver wire pickup over the last couple weeks. Now, obviously, he owned over 60% of leagues. But anyway, Taysom Hill is a hybrid tight end and a guy who could put up points as long as they're using him in the right situations like they have. Kyle Pitts, the Atlanta Falcons. So Kyle Pitts, it's been an up and down season for him. The first month of the season, we really didn't see much out of Kyle Pitts. And it's not 100% his fault. Desmond Ridder was a quarterback that just couldn't get the football to his wide receivers or tight ends consistently. And last week we saw Ridder leave the game. I don't know if it was a concussion or they just pulled him. It was mixed reports about that. But anyway, Kyle Pitts, pretty much his ceiling the last few weeks has been only about 8 fantasy points. Well, we know he's a freak athlete. And you just got to get the ball in his vicinity as Kyle Pitts. And he could do the rest. So right now with a good matchup versus the Minnesota Vikings, where their defense is middle of the pack, and their defense might tire out early in this one, where now they got to turn to Jaron Hall, a 5th-round pick out of BYU, with Kirk Cousins out for the season. I think Pitts can make some plays on this linebacking crew. David Njoku of the Cleveland Browns. So David Njoku finally had that breakout game last week versus Seattle Seahawks, where he found the end zone in that one and a lot of yards after catch. So we don't know if it's going to be PJ Walker again or Deshaun Watson. But the good news with Njoku as well, he said he's 100% recovered from that fire pit accident he had a few months ago with the burns. But I don't think you ever get 100% within the season with something like that. But Njoku, we know he's a gamer. We know he's a tough guy playing with those burns on his body. And this week here, it's a good matchup, no doubt, versus the Arizona Cardinals, one of the worst defenses in the league. So Njoku, after the last few weeks where he wasn't on the list, couple games in a row now, he showed some signs. And Ferguson of the Dallas Cowboys. So Ferguson found the end zone last week. And we know Dak Prescott always likes targeting the tight end, the big guy in the middle of the field. And they just fit the Dallas Cowboys system. We saw with Schultz the last few seasons, him and Dak had good chemistry. And we saw it in the Jason Witten days as well, in Dak's rookie years and a couple years after that. So this week here, I know it's a tougher matchup at the Philadelphia Eagles. But this Cowboy team, it looks like over the last 2 weeks, they've went more back to the passing game than the run. Tony Pollard's numbers have gone down. Dak Prescott's attempts have gone up. And obviously success has gone up as well with 2 big victories at the Chargers and then the Rams. So right now, this week here, I think Ferguson could be a decent option. His former teammate, Dalton Schultz of the Houston Texans. So Schultz, he had 3 games in a row finding the end zone. Before last week, he didn't find the end zone and the numbers weren't there. But right now, it's a decent matchup versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I know last season in the playoffs with the Cowboys, he had 2 touchdowns versus Buck defense, which is similar from last season. So right now, Dalton Schultz, we know he's a crafty tight end. We know he's a solid route runner. Him and Stroud definitely got on the same page over the last few weeks. And this week here versus Tampa D, he's familiar with from last season, like I mentioned. Cole Kmet of the Chicago Bears. So Cole Kmet, him and Justin Fields definitely had a good rapport. And once again, Fields is out and Tyson Bagent starting in this game. So right now, we don't know how this game's going to go. But if it goes like last week, Cole Kmet had a decent game, a lot of garbage time catches, a lot of middle in the field intermediate routes, where Bagent, we know, has a decent arm and started that game with a big pass to Darnell Mooney. But anyway, Cole Kmet, see if he could go out there and once again have a decent game. But he's been a hit-or-miss tight end throughout his career. Henry of the New England Patriots. Hunter Henry, we know he's had some solid games to start the season. And this Patriot offense is depleted now, especially with Kendrick Bourne, who's been the number 1 target over the last few weeks. But Hunter Henry's a good route runner. We know he's a matchup problem for most people. But Mac Jones just isn't consistent and getting the football team. So right now, I know it's a decent matchup versus the Commanders, but after the last few weeks, not seeing much here from Henry. I don't think I could count on him to do much this week. 15th and final tight end I'm ranking this week here is Jonnu Smith of the Atlanta Falcons. So Jonnu Smith, he got off to a great start this season out of nowhere, where they traded for him for a 7th-round pick in the offseason with the Patriots. But the last 2 weeks, he's definitely come back down to earth. Bad games. Week 7 at Tampa Bay, in that one, only 3 catches, 27 yards. And week 8 at Tennessee, only 1 catch, 13 yards. But this week here, it's a matchup versus the Minnesota Vikings. They've been a middle-of-the-pack type of defense this season. But now with Taylor Heineke in the lineup, as long as they're going more 2 tight end sets, I think Heineke could deliver the football to all the receivers and tight ends better than a Desmond Ridder, who I thought looked like he looked to run a lot. He held on to the football way too long, and at least Heineke has some experience, and we've seen him throughout his career have some big games with 300 yards for the Washington Commanders. So this week here, in a potential mini shootout between the Vikings and the Atlanta Falcons over there in the Dome, I think Jonnu Smith could have a decent ball game. And I know the last 2 weeks he's struggled, and he's been dropped in 7% of leagues in that time. But right now, with the bye weeks and tight end the weak position this season, Jonnu Smith could get back in the mix. So that's the top 15 tight ends I'm ranking here. Week 9 of the fantasy football season.